So, it's official. Battlefield 6 Season 2 has been delayed. Announced in a blog post on Tuesday evening, the Battlefield Studios team detailed an extension to Season 1, adding almost an extra month to it, and revealing what that additional month's worth of time would include, as well as some details on why that delay had been made. Now, there's been a lot of talk on social media since the turn of the year about how there's been basically no communication from the Battlefield Studios team regarding Battlefield 6 and when Season 2 may be launching. We were kind of getting close to the date where Season 2 should be turning up, and a lot of people actually anticipated a delay because of that lack of communication. The previous couple of updates for Battlefield 6, they hadn't landed particularly well, and instead of delivering engaging new content, those updates had been focusing on various gameplay issues that players had been giving their feedback on and wanted to see improve. And it seems more of the same is now on the way for the rest of Season 1, now extended to incorporate several fixes and changes driven directly by community feedback. I've got all the details in this video, and I'll give my opinions on it and the general state of Battlefield 6 towards the end of the video, so keep watching if you want to hear that. As much as this isn't really the news that we wanted, no one really wants to see a delay, I'll still be covering the game here on the channel, so if you want to stay up to date with the latest news and content for Battlefield 6, then do hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. And hey, I know this isn't exactly a video that you want to like, but clicking the like button does help all the same, so I'd appreciate it if you could do that. Right, let's get you the high-level details straight away. Season 1 for Battlefield 6 is being extended and is now due to conclude on February 17th, with Season 2 starting on that date as well. So, around another 30 or so days from this point forwards. The extension will be led off by an update being delivered on January 20th, that was the old Season 1 end date, and a new Battle Pass bonus path being activated later on January 27th, to give players some progression and things to work towards. The game update on the 20th will be focused on quality of life changes for the game, with several changes that were slated to arrive with Season 2 shifted into this new extended Season 1 timeline. So the update's still arriving at the same time, but instead of it being in Season 2, it's part of extended Season 1. And that's so that Season 2 launches in a better state than it otherwise would have. The team says, quote, "During our ongoing development, we've continued to review community feedback, and in order to keep our promise of monthly content-rich updates, determined that our best path forward is to extend Season 1 and give ourselves extra time to further polish and refine Season 2. Now, a lot of these quality of life fixes are being made as a direct result of player feedback taken over the duration of Season 1, and I've got it on good authority that despite the communication from official channels somewhat halting over the Christmas period, that the conversations being had by players, they weren't going unnoticed, and that the team recognizes that work needs to be done to Battlefield 6 to bring it up to the standards that players expect. In my opinion, right now, Season 1 has shown a very clear disconnect between what Battlefield thinks players want and what players of Battlefield actually want. With the Season 2 teaser showing off a soldier wearing a gas mask, surrounded by gas, I think it's safe to conclude that chemical warfare is going to be a big focus of the season, with the high likelihood of gas masks making a return to the franchise for, I think, the first time since Battlefield 1. Those required players to put them on and take them off during combat when they were wandering through areas of the map that had lingering gas clouds on them, such as Passchendaele from the final DLC of that game, or just when players threw gas grenades on the ground and the clouds would start emanating from that point. Now, putting on the mask, that removed any use of aim-down sights with your weapon, and it only reactivated when you took the mask off again. And I think that would be a really cool mechanic to see back in Battlefield 6 for sure. It'd lend itself to some really tense close-quarters fighting. We're going to get more concrete details on Season 2 in February before the start of the season, and we'll also be getting a roadmap for the rest of 2026. That's going to drop in February as well, giving us a much better understanding of what we should expect moving forwards for Battlefield 6. And I think that's really important because despite all the hype and the excitement for this game that we had during the open beta and up until the launch, a lot of that has disappeared recently. And a string of bad updates and a very lackluster Season 1, I think, are the reasons for that. The team really needs to come together and start delivering some solid content that excites players and offers different experiences. And to that end, actually, the team are committing to Battlefield Labs again. That client is going to serve as the public preview for future updates to Battlefield 6 and RedSec, where stuff that shows up there will be in the late stages of development. Both the extension to Season 1 and content for Season 2 is going to be hosted there in the coming weeks. And I'm happy to hear that Battlefield Labs is back, but it seems to have changed from before. It's now specifically being stated as a location for public previews, as opposed to super early builds in a place that feedback can be acted on behind an NDA. So now, I'm not seeing it so much as a feedback machine, but more as a marketing tool moving forwards than anything else. Now, reading through the rest of the statement that's been released by EA and the Battlefield Studios team, I'm left a little bit concerned because I don't really agree with some of the statements that are being made. It's just my opinion, of course, so take that into consideration. But the section talking about delivering a packed Season 1 in 2025, including the surprise launch of RedSec, that just doesn't really match up with what happened. Season 1, in my opinion, was far from packed. Just 2 new multiplayer maps were added when standards were set by games like Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4, the supposed inspiration for Battlefield 6, over a decade ago now. They included 4 maps with each DLC. Now, I know a DLC isn't the same as a season. DLCs were part of the Season Pass, which Battlefield 6 doesn't use. Instead, it adopts a live service model. But it's somewhat disappointing to continue seeing Battlefield deliver less content in a live service than a much more rigid Season Pass model. This happened in Battlefield 2042 and Battlefield 5 as well, content falling well short than the previous Season Pass model. Releasing just 2 multiplayer maps in 2025 or 2026 per season, it's just not going to cut it, in my opinion. The game has also only received 3 primary weapons and 2 secondaries during that first season. Battlefield 3's first DLC back in late 2011, Back to Karkand, that launched with 10 primary weapons. The gap in content is pretty wide here. And then with RedSec, I think it's a real stretch to label the launch of it as a surprise, seeing as it was tested in Battlefield Labs behind an NDA that just was not enforced. Everyone already knew it was coming, and unfortunately, when it did arrive, it wasn't really what Battle Royale players were looking for, let alone what Battlefield players were looking for. It didn't do anything new to really drive people to it and stick with it, and it barely shifted the concurrent player numbers on Steam when it launched. I think RedSec has failed to make the impact in the way that EA will have wanted it to make, and with it taking up such a large portion of Season 1, a lot of players will see it as an unwanted distraction when it comes to the content for the multiplayer. Now, I know all of these blog posts from EA and the Battlefield comms team, they're there to project the image of the game that they want people to see, but really, this one just doesn't match up with the reality that I'm seeing for Battlefield 6 at the moment. Now, in my opinion, on this Season 1 extension and Season 2 delay, I am, of course, quite disappointed. I'm disappointed that despite Battlefield 6 being the best-selling game of 2025 and having the most successful launch in Battlefield history, we're already at a place where new content is being delayed because things haven't gone to plan. Season 1 was largely a bust for me. Only the Eastwood map was compelling as new content alongside a couple of the primary weapons. And Season 2 needed to be a much stronger addition to the game, and now, unfortunately, it's going to take a fair amount longer before we see that. However, if the delay really is so that key quality of life changes, updates and fixes can be applied to Battlefield 6 that make the game better and more enjoyable, I think that's a fair reason to delay it. It doesn't make me any less disappointed at the severe fumble that we've seen from EA and Battlefield Studios since the open beta, really, but if they're taking steps to right some of the wrongs, then that's good in my opinion. I just question whether the issues we're going to see addressed could have been addressed much earlier, before launch, considering the feedback driving these changes now has largely been consistent since the open beta. That's my opinion anyway. There we are. You're up to date with Battlefield 6. Leave your thoughts and opinions down below in the comments section. Please share your opinions down there. Thumb up some of the opinions that you agree with, and obviously talk with other people that you don't agree with. Sometimes it's good to have a conversation. Anyway, I'll be back soon. Catch you then.